Welcome to the You Are the Superhero podcast. My name is Damian Nordman. This is the podcast where we are exploring real life superheroes, particularly in business, entrepreneurs, people who are helping you to transform your life and grow and help you to reach six figures and beyond, and all kinds of other fun stuff that helps you be the superhero in your life and for other people. Today, oh my gosh, this is so cool. So some of you all might have remembered I had Chris Baden on a while back. We talked about so many things, but one of the things that was a lot of fun that we talked about was his 4-year-old and how he taught his 4-year-old to be an entrepreneur and start selling things and all that good stuff. Well, his business partner and good friend, Sean Malone, is on with us today. Sean is a serial and social entrepreneur. He's owned 5 different businesses. His strengths come from nearly 2 decades of studying communication, business, and professional sales, as well as tireless hard work. And after years of testing, tweaking, and successfully growing a few businesses on his own, his biggest business success was taking his electronics company from $250,000 to just over $8 million in revenue. Yes, that's awesome. Sean has helped guide 4 additional organizations into the 8 figures. That is incredible. And yeah, I mean, Sean, we were just chatting beforehand. So many cool things we were already talking about and that we're already jiving and vibing with. So Sean, what is up, brother? Good to have you here.
Yeah, Damian, I am just super grateful to have the chance to speak with you, especially on this podcast. You are the superhero, not a better title that you could ever have. And I'm really excited to hopefully drip a little bit of sprinkles of inspiration into people's minds. And I'm pumped about the opportunity. So thanks for having me. I'm grateful for you.
Oh man, yes, I appreciate that, and really appreciate having you here to share your obviously knowledge, wisdom, some great experiences that you've had and what you've produced. It's always great to see what people have created in the world and how they've done that, right? Like find out like what are the secrets? Like how did you do that? Who did you have to become, right? So can you just tell us just maybe a little of your history, whatever you'd like to tell us, anything that can tell us like what brought you up to where you are now and who have you become?
Yeah, well, great question. I'll start with my story. 21 years ago, I came out of college and I had one thing on my mind. The one thing on my mind was, how do I make a boatload of cash? That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make a bunch of money and I had no idea how to do it. So I called my dad and he picked up the phone and I said, "Hey dad, like I want to make a boatload of money. How do I do it?" And he says, "Well, you have 3 choices." And at this stage I was like, "Oh, this is awesome. I'm going to know what choices I have." He goes, "Number 1, are you a CEO?" And I go, "Dad, I'm 21. I just came out of college. I don't even know what those initials mean." Like, no, that's not me at all. Right. And so then he goes, "Okay, number 2, are you an entertainer?" And I thought for a minute, I was like, "Well, I'm not very good at dancing. I don't know how to sing, or no, that's not me either." And so then he says, "Well, you better learn sales, number 3." And I was like, "Oh, cool. I can go learn sales." No idea. Always growing up, people were like, "Yo, you'll be good at sales. Just go talk to people. It's easy." And I was like, "Cool. I'll just go talk to people. It might be easy." And so I got into the sales. I took a sales job selling commodities. And I mean like aluminum and steel and sheet metal and stuff. It was like random weird
Really fun stuff.
Yeah, totally. And I sucked. I was so bad. Like, here's what I mean. Like, most people are like, "Yeah, right, Sean, you didn't suck." No, really, I did. So for the first 6 weeks, here's what happened. My boss says, "Here's a book. It's this manufacturer's directory book." And I opened it up. And I remember there's names of companies that I'd have to start cold calling. So I'd pick up this phone and I started banging 80 cold calls a day. And I did that every day religiously for 6 weeks. And at the end of the 6 weeks, after 2,400 tries, I booked 0 appointments.
Oh, wow.
Ouch.
Wow.
I was 2 weeks away from throwing in the white towel. And my boss comes to me on a Friday. He's like, "Hey, man, you better figure this stuff out or you're going to get fired." And I was like, "Oh, I don't want to get fired." Right. So I run home and I call my dad. I'm like, "Dad, what should I do? This guy's going to fire me." And he says, classic, "Go to the library and read a book." And I was like, "Okay, great. Thanks, Dad." So I go off to the library and I pick up a Tom Hopkins How to Master the Art of Selling Stuff book. And I realized about chapter 7, I was just sitting in the library for hours after hours. And I got to chapter 7 and I was like, "Oh, there's a science behind this whole thing called sales and stuff." And I never knew that. And there's this little line in there. I'll never forget. I memorized this line. I was like, this could get me an appointment. That's what I thought. And so I was like, okay, I checked the book out, took it home, and I said 1,000 times. And I went back on Monday morning, pick up the phone, made the dials, and I get into this conversation with my first guy. And I get to the place where I'm supposed to say this little line to set the appointment. And guess what happened? I froze, right? The hair stands up on the neck, the beads of sweat start pouring down the face. And I tried to deliver this line and butchered it. It was terrible. Like, it wasn't even close. But the guy was cool. He's like, yo, man, I understand what you're doing. Come on over Tuesday at 9 a.m. And I was like, yeah, I made an appointment. I was so excited. I was jumping around the room. My boss walks by and he goes, did you just make a sale? And I looked, I was like, no, I just made an appointment. And he's like, oh, and he just walks off. Right. So at that point, that one moment in my life really transformed the vocation that I wanted to pursue in communication. So like at that time, when I made that appointment, all that frustration and annoyance and anger just flooded out of my body. And I was like, oh, it happened. And I was like, it's cool. And I want to experience this day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out. And then I dove deep, right? And I started being able to set these appointments. And then I got into these conversations and I was like, I sucked at the sales conversation because I'd never done it before. Like most people, when they first start something, they suck at it. Like one of my mentors, Garrett White, he always says, at first you're going to suck. And then eventually you're going to suck less. And then you're going to suck so little that you actually become good. And I was like, oh, perfect. So I was learning, I was like, I get into sales conversations and I wasn't doing very good there. And I was like, maybe there's a science for sales. And I learned there was like all these systems. So I bought like 40 different sales systems. I went through all of them and I pulled out all the pieces where I thought was good, like just dove deep, right? And I created this like 7-point selling system that I put in place. And that's when the magic started. And I started crushing deals. And I had this little appointment system and I had a little sales system that I could actually track my prospects through step by step by step. And I knew the problem that I was solving and I knew how to have that conversation. I realized like, oh, if they have the problem, these are the 2 questions I can ask to get the deal closed over the line. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. And then that's when things started to go really quickly for me. I started making quite a bit of money. And I was like, great, I'm a sales guy, but I was still hungry because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. A lot of people listening to this, they maybe are getting in their path to go in that direction. And I was there too. And I was like, how do I take the next step? I was interested in buying a company. So I looked around and a girl that I went to college with, her father was looking for a new business partner in electronics. And I happened to be selling electronics, like think about the circuit boards that go in your cell phone or like on the screens and stuff. That's what the company that I built actually used to have, was we manufactured circuit boards. And so I partnered with this guy and I moved to Las Vegas where I live now. And I was like, okay, I'll just take my systems, I'll tweak them around a little bit. And I started getting in appointments and I started closing some deals. And then the company started to grow. All of a sudden, before you know it, I have 110 people reporting to me, 1,000 people across the nation reporting as sales guys for me. And our company went from 250K to like 8.5 million. It took
Wow.
Yeah.
How long?
About 3.5, almost 4 years to do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was fast. I was blown away because I just had my head and my nose in the grindstone. I was just going, right. And the young kid, a lot of energy. And so then I was working with these big government contractors like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, those types of guys. I was selling into the boardrooms of those, locking up these big contracts, multi-year deals. And I'm away in California working on a deal with this company called L3 Communications. We were designing this crazy cool thing. It was a laser guided missile detection system. It was so cool. I knew nothing about it, but I was just kind of the geeky sales guy, right? And but I was in this room of engineers, and my business partner calls me. I remember it like yesterday, and he goes, "Sean, emergency, get back!" And I was like, "Ah!" So I end the meeting, and I fly back to Vegas, and I walk in, and nothing was wrong. And there was a dude strutting around our facility in a suit, and I hate suits. I was like, "Who's the suit? I don't like him." And my business partner says, "Come on in," and we sit at his desk, and he goes, "Sean, while you were away the last week and a half, I sold the company to the suit." And I was like, "What? How did you sell a company that I own 47% of?" And he leans back in his chair and he goes, "Well, Sean, I own 53%. Sorry." And I was like,
Whoa.
because that was my ticket. That was that was the move. Like I was going in that direction. I just wanted to run that thing forever. So that put me in a really dark place. That was when I bottomed out. And as a newer entrepreneur, if you're listening to this, like be prepared to hear this term. It's called cycling, right? Every entrepreneur should or will cycle at least once, twice, 3 times, right? I have multiple times that I've done it. And it doesn't mean anything other than you're just failing forward. And that's okay, right? It's okay to fail. I hate the word fail. I think they should have a better word for it in the English language, but they don't.
Yeah.
And so that drove me into the bottom of most liquor bottles in Las Vegas. And I was like, oh man. So I started drinking. I'm grateful for that time because I did end up meeting my girlfriend at the time, now my wife. And she was like The Rock. And I grabbed onto her and she goes, yo, stop this drinking stuff and go do something. What should I do? She goes, you should sell something because you're good at it. And I said, okay. Put my resume out and I landed a job for a corporation selling roofing in the desert where it never rains. Like, what a great idea. Let's try that. I took my little selling systems and I put them in there. In the first 18 months, I like broke all their sales records. But during that transition, I realized I was like, oh, I hate roofers. I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
So I ended up quitting. And that at that moment, that was about 5 years ago when we saw our very first Facebook ad. And this is where we entered into the online space. And my wife saw the ad, and it was this little 19-year-old geek walking across the beach with no shirt on saying, I just made all this money. And if you think back to like what I wanted to do, I wanted to make a lot of money. So I was like, if that little dork can do it, I'm sure I can do it too. That's what I thought, right? So we went down the rabbit hole. We bought the thing. We went down into it was end up upgrade, upsell up to like over $10,000. And as we spent it all, we just went in there. And all I thought was, man, I can sell stuff and I don't know marketing. So if this little guy can teach me some marketing, maybe we can put it together and see what happens. Well, that's exactly what happened. We ended up building a downline of over 2,500. It's a network marketing company, medical grade water system, sit in your kitchen, pretty awesome product. And we built a downline of 2,500 people that all invested like over 10K with us. And we built an audience of around 300,000. And then all of a sudden, all these people come back and they're like, Sean, your software sucks. And I was like, it's not our software. We did build it. Yeah. And so at the time, we were being coached by Russell Brunson, and he says, hey, here's these software guys. So we met these software guys and we connected with them, built a relationship and started an agreement. And we actually launched a software company, and it did $1 million in its first 10 months. And it did like 12 million after like about a year and a half, which I was like on the back end. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And the whole time Russell's watching, and this is the time where I got into what I would call like the very dark period. This is my hardest cycle because we were running this little MLM business, and we also now had the software business. And so my time went like this. I was working like 20 plus hours a day. And I burned out. Man. I burned out to the point where I was driving, we had like a weekend off, and we're driving up north, and I happened to see a big tree on the side of the road. And I really considered like, what happens if I just turn the road and I hit the tree? Like, that's where I was.
Oh, yeah.
It gives me chills just thinking about it. And like, I stopped and I was tearing up, and I remember having a conversation with my wife. She's in the car with me. I was like, this is where I almost did. And she's like, oh my God, thank God you didn't. We need to make changes. And at that time, we're like, oh man. And so a lesson there for anybody listening, if you're in grind mode, it's okay. It's okay to be unharmonized, but just remember that there needs to be parameters. You have to set parameters so you don't lose out the vision of what you're building a business for. Why do we build businesses? Spend time with family, make a bunch of income, give us freedom, right? And if you're a slave to a machine, you know, right, Damien? You've been in the same place, right?
Totally.
Yeah. And so we were just there, and it was like, oh man, we need to make a change. And we were happen to run into Russell Brunson, and he says to us, he's like, hey man, I've been watching your journey now for multiple years. Like, you need to kill this company. It's not doing well for you, even though it was printing cash. And so again, the cycle, right? So we're like, how do you sell a company doing 7 figures? And so it took us a year. We ended up selling it. And then we're like, what do we do? And my other business coach, Alex Sharfin, was like, what are you good at? And we said sales. And he said, guess what? All these online entrepreneurs, they kind of suck at sales. You should go talk to them. And that started our high ticket agency, which has led into just some amazing things for us from there. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh. Wonderful. Yeah, man. So cool. So, so which did you sell both those businesses, or you had two, right?
Well, I didn't, so the electronics company, that one, I didn't have anything to do with the sale of that one. So I didn't go through any of that stuff. I had an agreement that said I owned 47%, but they beat me down like really hard. And I lost over 7 figures personally on that deal. It was a bad place, man. Like, it put me mentally, like I had to get a coach. That's why I always believe in like, yo, if you don't have a coach, like, get one.
Yeah.
just get one, because you might not think you have any head trash. But what I'll tell you, everybody has head trash,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So coaches are
Oh,
important. Coaches have saved my life. Russell Brunson saved my life. Alex Sharfin saved my life. There's a number of people I could list that have saved my life. So
absolutely. Yeah. This is truly the golden age of the coaches, because there are a lot of really good coaches available if you look for them and you kind of know what to look for, and at different levels and different things. I mean, gosh, I mean, there's so many different things you can have a coach for, whether it's mindset or business or spirituality or health or relationships. I mean, there's just so many things that that can benefit. So okay, yeah, this is so cool. I mean, I love that you're talking about this, because like you were saying that cycling, right? That and I agree. It's really, how can you call that a failure, right? I mean,
right.
it's like you all made that business reach $8 million, that first one. I mean, that's, most people don't even most people don't even fathom that, right? Don't even imagine that. So to be able to have that experience, that's golden. That's totally golden. So then you were, sounds like, by the way, was that Kangen by any chance? Was that
It was, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely,
I,
100%. Yep.
when I was with my previous girlfriend from some years back, we had a Kangen machine. They're wonderful machines, by the way.
They
But
are.
yeah, that's when you said medical grade water, I'm like, it sounds like Kangen.
It
But
is.
yeah, so and then you all also had the business that was helping you to grow, was it a software business? Was that what, or it was a sales system? I'm sorry, I've already
Oh
kind
yeah,
of,
yeah. So
there's
the
so many.
software company that we built like 5 years ago when we first came online, and we were using the other guy's software as like a little marketing engine, and
Okay.
all it did, like very simply, is it would drive. It was using paid ads to cold traffic. Now, if
Okay.
you read Russell's Traffic Secrets book, you realize on the very last page of that book it says, "Don't ever do cold traffic or paid ads to cold traffic until you've tried all the other methods of doing traffic." And I was like, oh, well, I did this backwards. I started
Yeah.
there. Like that was a big
Yeah.
mistake on my end. And I was like, oh man, like at least I know that. Right. And we got okay at it. We were doing pretty well. We ended up getting to a place where, I mean, we're pumping a 30K a month into ads and seeing a big result from it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think there's just so many more easier ways to find new opportunity and close deals and actually make impact and help people. And so, yeah, so that business, when we built our software platform, it did three things. Number one, it helped people learn paid ads. So there was a little module of training inside of there. Number two, it had 5 done for you funnels that we built
Mm.
through ClickFunnels. And these ones were optimized by our team weekly, and they were converting really, really well. And then number three, as people came through our funnels, they would schedule a call after submitting an application. And then I built a sales team to manage all the traffic for our affiliates. So all you had to do as an affiliate of the software was learn to do paid ads, build some creative, drive people into our funnels, and then our sales team would close the high ticket deal, and the new affiliate would get paid all the commission. And it was real healthy, right? And so
Yeah.
that's what that software tool did. It was a great use, but I at the time I wasn't in the place where I could serve those people. And so
Yeah.
that's when Russell was like, "Hey, kill your baby," right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
when that company, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. um, Russell Brunson, by the way, if anybody doesn't know who he is, I mean, gosh, he really, I mean, he created ClickFunnels, and I mean, I got to see him speak one time. I mean, I don't know him. I've never been coached by him like you guys, but very cool guy, and just kind of amazing stuff that he's done with online marketing and sales, and just, oh my gosh, just kind of genius. Um, so okay, here's a question for, say, an entrepreneur who's newer. Maybe they're still a solopreneur, or maybe they're just starting to like figure out that they can get some help from a VA. What's your suggestion, for example, like, because you mentioned, don't do paid ads to cold market till you've done all this other stuff. But for example, what's a step for someone as far as getting better at their own sales, or when to jump in and start hiring someone to sell for you? Like, what's your thoughts about that process?
I love the question. And so just trying to kind of continue my story, and I'll bring it back to that full
Oh,
circle.
sure.
So So it's a perfect transition. So as we moved into our high ticket agency, we had these entrepreneurs that were coming to us saying, Sean, I don't want to sell. I want a sales team. And we're like, okay, we'll help you build sales teams. I've done that a million times. I have no problem with this. And so we help these clients hire, onboard, and train sales teams. And once we got the sales team in place, we said, great, here's your sales team. And then the entrepreneur comes back to us and they say, Sean, the revenue numbers are not going up. The sales team's not doing their thing. And I asked the question, well, what's the system that you have that consistently and predictably puts people on their calendars each and every day? And every entrepreneur said, I don't have one. And that's when we're like, oh, we have one that we've been using for 20 plus years. Let's put it in your business and see what happens. So we put the system into their business, and that's when everything took off. And we recognize, and I'm talking about like a $30,000 a month business going to like a $90,000 a month business in like 3 months, like tripling the output, right? And so I was like, oh, that's the thing that everyone needs. And so then we're like, how do we serve not just to the 5 one-on-one clients? How do we serve to a bigger group? And that's when we started a mastermind. And we used to work with businesses. We brought them through a mastermind, which would teach them this prospecting system, because that's what everyone needs. Everyone says, Sean, I want to be great at sales. Okay, great. I can teach you to be great at sales very quickly, but where are you getting the consistent conversations coming from? That's the bigger issue. And so that's when we created the system. And it's very basic. It's just starting conversations, right? And we chose the method of messenger. And the reason we chose it very, very simply is this. 83% of small to mid-sized businesses are using Messenger to close deals. Okay, 83%. And now we all know that there's all these amazing CRMs out there. They do great with email. They do great with automation. They do great with text messages and even phone calls. My question was, if 83% of small and mid-sized businesses are closing deals through Messenger, why don't any of these CRMs tackle that issue? Because that's a pretty big freaking issue. And so we're like, well, let's see who solved the problem. And we ended up buying all these different softwares. And what we found was some of them are good, some of them aren't so good. And majority of them were designed and built by a marketer's brain. And no offense to marketers, because I love marketing, but marketers' brains say, here's how you generate the shiny object and start a conversation. And that's great if you want to start conversations and you already know how to manage the conversation to close the deal. But when we decided, we need a software that does this, but actually closes the deal versus just starts a conversation, that's when our software came alive for us. We're like, that's what it's got to be. And so we actually built the software that not only starts conversations, it allows you to eliminate having to have a funnel or a website or paid ads or any of that stuff, because we can get the people right into the place where you need to chat with them. And then you just manage the conversation and you can close the deal. Back to your question. How do you, as a new person, how do you get traction? How do you get visibility? The fastest and easiest way to do this right now in today's age, if you're selling online, is to go find a Facebook group that's very close to your niche. Okay. Join that Facebook group and then ask them a few questions. Like start 3 conversations a day with people out of that group. Just say, hey, we're in the same group. Can I ask you a quick question? Do you struggle with this? Are you worried about that? Are you annoyed this is happening in your world? Are you pissed off that this isn't working for you? And when you can start with the problem in their world, guess what? It's going to generate a really healthy conversation. And then you'll know immediately whether or not you can solve their problem. Because people are only going to give you money if you can solve their problems. Going back to Chris and teaching his kids how to build a business, what did he tell them? He said, listen, you got to solve people's problems and then they'll give you money. Same thing. Hasn't changed in years. Right? Generations.
In millennia. Really?
Right.
Thousands of years.
And so the fastest way to get traction is just be disciplined to do the lost art of prospecting, which is to have conversation, to start conversations.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So good, dude. I mean, it's like, my crown is tingling. My head's tingling because what you're saying, I mean, it's so simple. It's so simple, but because we're not taught this in school, like we're not taught, like you and me, majority of us, we're not taught sales. We're not taught how to start a conversation. We're not taught how to find out what a person's problem is and if we can solve it. I mean, and it's so easy, but we're learning all this other stuff, which is, some of it's fine, but a lot of it turns out to be garbage, right? I mean, when it comes down to like actually making things happen in the world. It's like, it's kind of like there was a book I read. Oh my gosh, it was almost 20 years ago now, because I haven't read that many books on selling, but one of them I happened to read called The Selling Bible by John F. Lawhon. I mean, I remember reading that, and he was just like, nothing really ever happens until somebody sells somebody something.
Right.
And that's so true, because even like your wife before your girlfriend, one of you had to sell the other on, hey, come hang out with me, right? I mean, that's
Absolutely.
it's a form of sales. I mean, you go on you ask for a date, you ask to be part of a club. I mean, doesn't matter. There's even like, I could be hanging out with my dad. And it's like, if I want to sell him on, like, yeah, let's go out to eat the stuff, just, hanging around here. So yeah, it's so true. I mean, what you're describing is so true, and it's so simple.
And to add to that, you're totally right, 100%. I always say, they say the oldest profession in the world is prostitution. Well, before that happened, there was a sale that was made one way or another, right? For that. So
Yes.
selling is the oldest profession, and it's been way before the internet. It's been way before anyone else. And what is it, right? It's just solving a problem for somebody. And so, like, again, going back to the prospecting piece, is if you just generate a conversation, staying focused on your prospect's problem that you solve for them by asking them, are you worried about this? Are you frustrated with this? Are you annoyed by this? Are you pissed off this is happening in your business? You're going to win most of the time.
Yeah.
Because if you can describe your problem, or if you can describe your prospect's problem better than they can say it in their head, they will immediately think you have the answer. It's just how psychology works.
Yeah.
And that's like a big
Totally.
key, right? So just focus on
Totally.
and get very clear. And so like people are like, oh, okay, Sean, well, how do you do that? The way to do that is to get super hyper focused, clear on the problem you solve, and be able to say it in one sentence, less than 7 words. Because when you can do
Yeah.
that, everyone will listen to you.
Well, and I would even just go. I first of all, I totally agree with what you're saying, and then I would even take it a step further, which for most of us, myself included, we need some people to help us through that process. Like I have a couple coaches right now who are helping me with that, and I'm probably even going to be working with you guys sometime soon, because I love what you all do. I mean, I love Chris and everything he's offered, and your all system that I'm looking at, and what you're talking about today. It's just ringing true, right? So I feel like it's so smart because oftentimes we just can't see what it is that we're doing. We haven't distilled it. We haven't formulated it correctly. I mean, and I can talk from that perspective of, really, I've been with groups before where it was very helpful interacting with groups. I've also been like isolated by myself. I mean, I had something not entirely similar, but not totally dissimilar from you, where I was in a depression just 5 years ago, completely almost completely by myself. And in that isolated cave of existence, it was hard to get out, just because of not being able to see things from a much more objective point of view. So I feel like coaches or mentors or a group or someone who can teach you what you're describing, which is why I love what you all are doing, that you are teaching people this stuff and guiding them and mentoring them. Oh man, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, because it cuts the time down. I mean, it could 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times faster than if you're trying to do it by yourself.
Yeah, I agree. And here's the big challenge. If you don't have a coach, so if you guys are listening to this, reach out to Damien, get on his list, talk with him, work with him, because he knows what he's talking about. And if you don't have a coach, you sometimes fall off the train tracks. Here's the
Mm.
thing about prospecting. I'm going to say it's extremely high value for every business. No one can argue this, but it's also a pretty low skill thing, because you can systemize it. And
Mm.
so when an entrepreneur's mind, when your mind or my mind, or who's listening to this' mind, starts doing a high value, low skill thing, here's what happens. We get bored, so we stop.
Yeah.
And this is why most entrepreneurs don't prospect, because they
Yeah.
get bored of doing the work. So this is why we say, yo, get the system in place, or use our software tool or a software tool, and then have somebody come in and do the low
Yes.
skill labor work for you. That's very high value. And this is what we call leverage, because if you can leverage this, you're going to have a stuffed calendar, or your challenge will be full. or you'll have more eyeballs on your summit that you could ever imagine, or whatever's going to happen, and you're going to have great conversations. And then it's a matter of just going through that 7-point selling system that I said is like, if you just know the problem you solve and you ask about it and how they've tried to solve it before, and you're eventually going to get all this data out, you'll be like, oh, I can solve that in my sleep.
Yeah.
Should we move forward? And people are going to say yes.
Yep.
That's that's it.
Brilliant. Yeah. And what I like about what you just said, it's so smart and it's so spot on, is that, some people love to just be salespeople, right? Some people love it. And
Yeah.
especially if they're getting paid well, or if they're getting good commission or whatever it is, they love it. It's like, oh, this is an easy job. I can just talk to people and go through this system, especially if you've created the system for them and they know you, they know what your service or product is or whatever. And then yeah, I agree, like what you're saying, like as an entrepreneur, I want to be doing my zone of genius. I want to be doing the thing I do, right? And that's mindset, that's creative thinking, that's helping people, working one-on-one or in groups with people to motivate and inspire them and change the way they see things. That's what I want to be spending most of my time with. And like right now, having conversations with cool people like you, where I can learn stuff and I can have fun. Like I'm totally just having fun right now. I can do this all day, especially
Absolutely.
so yes, that leveraging that is so smart and so genius and so simple. So I totally there with you. Totally.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, and again, it's as simple as, like I mentioned, just be disciplined to go. First of all, get a coach if you don't have one. Secondly, find the group that has the niche of people that you want to sell to, go into that group, join it, and just start asking questions. 3 people a day, do it consistently. I can assure you that within a month, you'll have more conversations going, deals will be closing, money will be coming, you'll generate some cash flow, and then you can start offloading the prospecting thing, because it's high value, low skill, and it can push you back into your zone of genius if you're teaching mindset or you're teaching whatever it is that you're
Yeah.
teaching, because that's where
Health
you truly
coaching. Yeah.
shine. That's
Yeah.
it.
All
Yeah,
that stuff.
that's it.
Yeah. Yes, dude. So cool. So cool. All right. So want to start wrapping up here. This has been so much fun though. I'll probably have you and Chris come on my Facebook live show sometime, because I feel like that would
Love
be
to.
another way for us to, maybe the three of us get a
Yeah.
vortex going. So few last questions. What is your superpower? You, Sean Malone, what is your superpower?
So I'm dedicated to the vocation of communication. I help people that are in this space, specifically in the online space, to get better with communication and to close deals, because more people need to close deals. And the reason why is because impact. Money is money. And then when you have enough of it, it doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
Right. So if you're in that place and you're like, I got to get money, I got to get money. Yeah, you do. And this is why you go start these conversations, because that conversations are going to generate cash flow. And when your bank account is sufficient, you can sleep at night because you have enough cash. And then it becomes impact. And I believe what you do, Damien, what I do, and what other the superpower entrepreneurs, I believe entrepreneurs are the only people on the planet that can actually change the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Jobs said, you got to dent the universe. How are you going to dent the universe? Right? That's it. So it's
Yeah.
just like, okay, so once you get to a level where you have enough cash flow, then it's like, how do you make the impact? So my job is to help people navigate through that path to have enough cash flow in their pocket so that they can go make an impact.
Yeah. Oh, love that. Love that. Hope everybody listening really is letting that sink in, because it's just again, I feel like there's so much wisdom and so much truth that you're delivering, that's immediately useful and long-term useful. There's another question I just popped in my mind. I feel like I'm going to start asking this question to more people.
Sure.
So, do you believe that in essence, our universe is infinitely abundant? Like there's always plenty of abundance for everybody.
Unequivocally, yes. Unequivocally,
Can,
yes.
can you say why you think that? Like, what's the, just anything from any perspective you want to take it? What's
I'll
the why
go
is,
right back to the sales conversation, because that's where my power zone's at, right? Like most people get into this world where like, oh, I got to find this customer. I got to find this customer. And they do this for say 2 years and they found a bunch of customers. That amount of customers might be 100. It might be 50. It might be 70. It might be whatever it's going to be. But guess what? The work you did to get there, you can just keep doing it and find more. You have more opportunity with more clients, with more people. There's more people in this world that need your help. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, my idea is stupid, I'm going to throw it, don't do that. You started that idea because you can make an impact with other people. It's your responsibility and your oath to go do that. So just be convicted. People ask me, they say, Sean, what does it take to be an amazing salesperson or sales professional? And I say, it's not just one thing, it's three. Number one is you got to be convicted. If you're not convicted, go sit on a log and write down the reasons why you're not convicted and then sell yourself on why you should be convicted. Number two, you better have persistence. If you get your ass knocked down, guess what? Les Brown says, if you can see up, you better, well, he says, if you get knocked down, you should land on your back, because if you can see up, you can get up, right? Persistence. And then the third one is consistence. You have to consistently do the activity, because when you consistently do the activity, you're persistent, doesn't matter what people say to you, and you're convicted about your move, you're going to win every time.
Yeah.
And so when I talk about abundance, yes, like there's people that throw rocks at me and stab me in the back with arrows and all this other stuff that they say. I don't care, right? Because the people that need my message are going to hear it and they're going to come to me.
Right.
And this is where the abundance comes from. And so as an entrepreneur doing a thing, just remember, you did it because there was a reason. You solve a problem, stick with it, and get through it.
Yeah, dude. Yes. Oh my gosh. So again, so true and so spot on. And I love. So okay, yeah. I love what you're saying. And what's interesting to me is that, so two things, and one is connected very much to what you said, but I really believe that there's always an infinite amount of abundance for everybody, no matter, even if everyone was applying all this stuff we're talking about. Like if in fact, I believe there'd be even more abundance if everyone on the planet would be applying it. However, the interesting thing is most people won't do what you're talking about. The majority of people won't. They won't be persistent. They won't go through the cycles and the failures, so to speak, or whatever. They won't take your advice. And so, I mean, however you look at it, whether you believe that the more abundant we all are, the more abundant we all are, or whether you believe and see that most people aren't willing to take actions, and so there's a bigger piece of the pie there. Either way, you win.
Right.
And so, because you're willing to do the work. And so again, this has been great. This has been, I hope people are just letting this wash through them, and they're either inspired to go ahead and take that first step, or if they're just saying, wow, I'm doing pretty good, but this is going to help me get to a level I have never achieved before. Either way, it's just fantastic. Sean, thank you so much. And by the way, what's the best way if people want to either check out the do you all have a name yet for the software that you're using? I know that's been,
we do, but I'm not allowed to release it yet.
Okay.
So that's kind of the hard part. But yeah, so our software tool is up and coming. We're doing our launch. We're still in the final bits of our pre-launch right now. We're launching next week, which will be good. The new name will come out and everything. I'm really excited about it. But if people are interested in learning a little bit more about us, the Sales Ascenders movement, and the software tools and everything that we're building, we have a Facebook group. It's just go to groups on Facebook and type in Sales Ascenders Inner Circle. Damien, I'll send you the link afterwards, so you have a link directly to it. Might be around this video somewhere where you can just click and go there and just join our group, right? And then once you dive into our group, we are very good with connecting with every member of our group. We'll get on a conversation with you and we'll see if we can help, because if we can help, we will. That's what we do. And so if you're in that place where you want to grow your business, like, we have a tool set that will allow you to do it faster than any other method that's online today.
Yeah. And it's interesting that I'll just say this to the audience. It's like, I'm like 90% sure I'm going to switch over to your all's tool, because I mean, Chris showed it to me. It's amazing. And I just love you guys. I mean, I feel like you guys have so much wisdom and wealth. It's so powerful. And I'm even at the place where I'm like needing to really systematize and get things figured out. So for anybody listening, such good stuff, man. Again, thank you so much for jumping on here and giving your time and wisdom and energy, and really just bringing it, brother. Appreciate it.
Damien, I'm like I mentioned, I think the movement you've created is truly inspirational, and I think you've done a lot of really wonderful things for a lot of people. So thank you for the opportunity. And by the way, if you're listening to Damien and you're thinking about engaging with him, do so right now. Don't wait. Talk to him.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, thanks, man. Yes, appreciate it. It's so good. All right. Everybody, thank you all for listening and tuning in. Gonna have another solo episode next week, and then more great interviews after that. And it's just love everybody to keep connecting in. And as always, be invincible.